Hello there, welcome back to the booth here at Mythic Championship II from London. That's Paul Cheon, I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. Hello, welcome along. We are in the semifinals, well and truly down the stretch here on Top 8 Sunday, and we've got in the feature match area semifinal number 1, which is comprised of Matt Sperling and Adrian Zhu from Canada. We have Tron versus Affinity. A lot of colorless spells will be cast in the coming games. We're playing a best 3 out of 5, so these first two will be pre-sideboarded. Paul, walk us through the matchup here. Take a look at our players, on the head-to-head there. But what does the matchup look like?
Well, I think it's very similar to kind of what we saw previously, where the aggressive deck before it was humans, now being Affinity, you want to just put on as much pressure as possible. You want to kind of get those explosive starts, because if the game goes long, of course Tron has the ultimate inevitability in all of its powerful spells. Now, taking a look at Matt Sperling's list, cards like Mox Opal, we saw him kill turn 3 with Affinity. Now, that's not common with Affinity. We've seen it with Hardened Scales, but Affinity, it's more of a turn 4 deck often. But with something like a Mox Opal, that's how you can get those really explosive starts and kill your opponent very, very quickly.
We've seen the consistency really improved here with his Tron deck as well, Paul. Perhaps the mulligan rule lending itself to that. I know that in this case, Adrian has mulligan to 5 pretty aggressively.
Right, but we've seen Adrian mulligan to 4 and be in situations where he's still just one big effect away from kind of taking over the game. And that's what the Tron deck is able to do. So the Tron decks can comfortably mulligan to 5 and still easily win games.
All right, we are underway here in our first game of semifinal number 1. Adrian's going to kick things off with a Chromatic Sphere, pass the turn back to Sperling. Does he have one of those good turn ones where he kind of plays 3 or 4 things? No, it looks like it's just going to be the Vault Scourge for him.
Yeah, and then of course play draw is extremely important here, because Tron, with Oblivion Stone, you're not actually, if you get Tron on turn 3, you're not actually able to play the stone and pop it. So, that is that extra window for Affinity to kind of, try to kill them before turn 4. But if you're on the draw, that means that you actually need to kill them on turn 3 before they can actually go off with the Oblivion Stone.
Yeah, super important sequence there early in the stages. Now here, it's going to be Ancient Stirrings for Adrian. And unfortunately for him, he just finds another copy of Chromatic Sphere. The good news for him is he's got Power Plant and Mine already. Could he just have Natural Tron here? Doesn't look like it.
He doesn't. He had to mulligan to 5. He cast an Ancient Stirrings to try to find that last piece. But, however, he just doesn't have Tron. But he has the kind of couple of the most important cards in the matchup here. Walking Ballista and Oblivion Stone, extremely powerful. Walking Ballista especially strong because Affinity has a wealth of 1 toughness creatures. So even playing like a Walking Ballista for 2 can go a long way. Whereas against the humans deck, it's still very, very good, but the humans are just a little more robust. So you're not able to take out as many threats with, a 3/3 Walking Ballista.
Okay, this is turn 2. Critical here for Matt Sperling after a relatively slow start with just the 1 card, but here we go. Mox Opal plus Steel Overseer. That's 2 spells this turn. And a critical one. Steel Overseer is the type of card that if left unchecked, it can absolutely dominate the board.
Yeah, and Matt Sperling with Mox Opal again. So now he's going to be able to play the Steel Overseer. He does have 3 artifacts in play. Mox Opal is turned on, so if he does have another creature to play here, that would be huge.
He's going to attack just for 1 with Lifelink. Does he have something else? Maybe another Vault Scourge, a Memnite. Oh, look at this. He's going to go for 2 mana here. He taps a Mox Opal for mana, plays another one. It is legendary. He chooses to keep the untapped one, taps that one. It is Cranial Plating.
So now that he has a Cranial Plating in play, he now is in a position where if he draws a land, he can play the other Cranial Plating in his hand and double equip.
Whew. That is the quickest of starts here. Cranial Plating times 2 is a devastating start. Oh, it was a Tron piece off the top of the library there for Adrian, but not quite the right one. The good news for him, he at least can mitigate the board here by using the Walking Ballista, and he does have to cash it in to kill the Steel Overseer.
However, now Matt Sperling, Adrian Zhu sitting at a comfortable 19 life. It might actually be in his best interest to try to go for an infect kill with Inkmoth Nexus. Tron doesn't really have a whole lot of ways to interact with the creature lands. You have, of course, Karn and Ghost Quarter. So that's what Matt Sperling is doing here, because if you look here, he's got, it looks like 5 artifacts on the battlefield. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's an attack for 6 from the Inkmoth Nexus. So that is
2
6.
turns?
That's a 2-turn clock.
Wow. So this is going to be 6 poison plus 1 lifelink. But the critical part here, of course, being that poison. And there you go. You've got 6 poison counters. That means that if Adrian does not find a way to interact with Inkmoth Nexus next turn, this one could be done.
Yeah, this is one of the big advantages of playing an aggressive deck like Affinity over humans. When you're playing humans, if your opponent plays an Oblivion Stone and pops it, you're dead. But here, if you put a bunch of Ravager counters on something like one of your Nexus, then the Oblivion Stone actually just does not remove lands. It cannot destroy lands. So you can actually kill them even through something like an Oblivion Stone.
Yeah, it just says destroy each non-land permanent, even if it happens to be a creature at that time.
Right.
Is this over?
It looks pretty close to over. I mean, keep in mind, Adrian did mulligan to 5 and did not have turn 3 Tron.
Yep. He drew Chromatic Star for the turn. Oh, this is interesting. It looks like he has a Sylvan Scrying in his hand. Now, you mentioned Ghost Quarter earlier. He does have one of those in his deck. Does that foil the plan here from Matt Sperling?
Well, I think he has to go for the Ghost Quarter here because he's just dead next turn. So he's going to have to go for Ghost Quarter and hope to just naturally draw Tron next turn so that he can actually play Oblivion Stone and pop it.
There it is. Ghost Quarter out of the library thanks to the Sylvan Scrying. Boy, the Chromatic Sphere and Chromatic Star is really important here this game, at least to allow this line for Adrian Zhu, because he needs it. Otherwise, he's looking at death. Is he going to do it now?
Oh, interesting.
Wow, that's aggressive.
Yeah, so firing it off now. But then this makes things a lot easier for Matt Sperling. I think he would have just equipped the Cranioplating on one of the Vault Scourges anyways because of the onboard Ghost Quarter. But now Matt Sperling will try to whittle down Zhu's life total with the Vault Scourges and a Cranioplating. Keep in mind, though, I think he has another Cranioplating in hand, so this is going to be a big turn. If he draws a land, he can go Cranioplating and double equip here.
And you know what? He drew the perfect land.
Artifact land.
That's right. He drew Darksteel Citadel, so now it's bang, bang, bang.
Is this lethal?
Vault Scourges. It can't be 9, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7?
14, 16 damage.
It's too short.
Yeah.
Wow, not a bad plan B here from Matt Sperling. He's once again putting maximum pressure on Adrian. So what is the out here for Adrian? Just drawing a tower and using the casting and sacrificing the Oblivion Stone in one fell swoop?
Yeah, if he does that, he can remove all of the permanents. But keep in mind, Blinkmoth Nexus is still on the battlefield, which is a 2-turn clock by itself. But he does absolutely need to find Tron here.
He didn't. He found Ancient Stirrings. Would this leave him enough mana? No, right?
He finds Tron.
Oh, he did find Tron, but remember, he already tapped one of the mines for just 1 mana, so he has a total of 7.
No, he has 8 because he filtered the mana. He has a green mana floating.
You are right. That is perfect. That is exactly the amount he needed to get that Oblivion Stone. Adrian Zhu just living dangerously the last 2 turns, avoiding lethal, though he is still facing down.
But that's an Arcbound Ravager.
Arcbound Ravager off the top of the library. He can sacrifice it to turn that attack for 1 into an attack for 2. And that is game number 1 going to Matt Sperling. Wow.
One good top deck deserves another.
Yeah.
You know, Matt Sperling with that Arcbound Ravager. What a draw. Of course, keep in mind, Adrian needed to naturally draw Tron there. That was the only way he could actually cast the Oblivion Stone and fire it off. Wow.
Wow. Incredible. Matt Sperling, reach for the deck box. Nope, not quite yet, Matt. He is going to consult the deck list. While he does, we'll take a short commercial break. We'll be back right after this.
War of the Spark Mechanic Spotlight, Proliferate. War of the Spark marks the return of a keyword that's no stranger to war, Proliferate. Longtime fans will remember Proliferate as a tool that spread death and decay on a certain metal-loving world. Here on Ravnica, even on the brink of total destruction, Proliferate plays a slightly different role. First, we'll need a card to show off. World, Flux Channeler. Flux Channeler, it's the world. When you're instructed to proliferate, you choose any number of players or permanents that have counters on them, and any kind of counter will work. Could be +1/+1 counters on your creatures, loyalty counters on your planeswalkers. If you have an energy counter, that'll work, or even doom counters, if that's your thing. For each player or permanent you chose, take each kind of counter it has and give it another one. When you proliferate, you can't choose any player or permanent that doesn't already have a counter. Let's see proliferate in action. Let's say the battlefield looked like this. You control Flux Channeler, Rising Populace, and Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. Now, Rising Populace already has 2+1/+1 counters on it, and Jace is over here chilling at 5 loyalty counters. Across the battlefield, you're staring down Arlen, Voice of the Pack, and one of her wolves with a +1/+1 counter on it. Hey, team, look, this isn't a real game. I'm just trying to help these people out with proliferate. Cool. Can we turn the cards around? Thank you. So, we're casting Ignite the Beacon, hoping to find some help. Now, before it resolves, Flux Channeler's triggered ability is going to happen, so you're going to proliferate. In War of the Spark, proliferate has 2 chief uses: make creatures with +1/+1 counters larger, and build the loyalty of your planeswalkers. So let's do that. +1/+1 counter for Rising Populace, and a loyalty counter for Jace. Now your opponent's stuff has counters, but you don't have to choose them when proliferating. Look, this isn't just a fight against Nicol Bolas, it's the fight against Nicol Bolas. Lose and there are no second chances. Use proliferate, get your team as pumped as you can. War is on the horizon. Prepare.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in London. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Cheon. We're bringing you coverage of Mythic Championship II. And if you're just joining us, first off, welcome. It's nice to have you along. We've got semifinal number 1 lined up, live and ready to go. This is Matt Sperling playing Affinity. He's up against Adrian Zhu from Canada on Tron. And Matt, he won game number 1 in impressive fashion. Adrian really kind of scrapped back and forced the issue, but the pressure was too much ultimately. Players are taking a look at their opening hands, and I'm going to remind you, by the way, this is another mulligan from Zhu. He mulligans very aggressively. We are playing best 3 out of 5. It's not your normal best 2 out of 3, and what that means is we do have sideboarded games. They just don't come until the 3rd game and later. So this is game number 2, so they're just playing their main deck configurations. Here's our head-to-head. You can see Matt Sperling, 3 Mythic top 8s now. So really his career is shaping up quite nicely, especially for somebody who, you know, maintains a full-time career outside of Magic as well.
Yeah, I think he, under occupation, he put down corporate lawyer. So, you know, Matt Sperling has been playing Magic, however, for a very, very long time. I remember even when I played in the Pro Tour qualifiers back, 15 years ago, he was even very good back then. He was kind of one of the end game bosses. Like every time you played in one of those qualifiers in the top 8, you'd kind of expect to see Matt Sperling in the top 8 or in the finals.
He's picked up Affinity. Maybe a shame here, but he's got 2 Experimental Frenzy, which is kind of the innovation for the deck that he's running. How important is it here? Is that the type of card that we're going to see play a key role in the matchup?
I don't think it's as important here because the big key in this matchup is getting out the gates quickly. You want to put on pressure. You want to draw your Cranial Platings and Mox Opals and beat down as early as possible because you don't really want to kind of take this deck to the late game. You don't want to go against Tron and have them start dropping 10-10 Walking Ballistas onto the battlefield. Now, taking a look at Tron, I think we saw Tron kind of show that it is pretty favored against humans. I mean, something maybe 60-40, something like that. But I do think this specific matchup is much closer to 50-50. Of course, if Tron does get its Oblivion Stone online, the Affinity deck doesn't have a whole lot of ways to interact. But also, cards like Ugin are not nearly as effective in this matchup because Ugin kills colored permanents, and Affinity doesn't have any of those.
Yes. All right, well, Adrian right now is on a mulligan to 4. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, then why is he holding 7 cards in his hand? Well, we're trying out a new mulligan rule here at Mythic Championship II, and it is aptly called the London Mulligan. This is, of course, modern that we're trying it out in here, and I know that, Paul, you and your coworkers back in Play Design at Wizards of the Coast headquarters are tracking this. You guys are gathering data, both anecdotal and actual, and taking a look at if this may be the way to go going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And
wow, is he honestly going to 3, Paul?
I'm actually a little bit surprised there because he did have Tronland, a Sylvan Scrying, and a Star. So you know, keep like going to 3. I guess you still have you do have maybe a slightly better chance of getting that Tron going on turn 3, but it felt like maybe he could have had time. I mean, I'm always the person saying people don't mulligan enough with Tron, but once you get down to 4 and then getting down to 3, at that point, I mean, you have to keep a large majority of your hands.
I mean, so far, Adrian's mulliganed to 5 and now at least 3. Is that?
Excuse me?
He mulliganed to 5 game 1, right? Now he's mulliganing to 3?
I think mulliganing to 5 is very common with Tron, especially with the new mulligan, but
3 is
3 is rough.
Else.
Here we go.
So what are the perfect 3? Is it just 3 Tron lands and hope to rip? What is
yeah, it's like 2 Tron lands on an expedition map, or 3 Tron lands, or something along those lines. But it is rough. I mean,
it doesn't feel like there's any he could just pick 3 cards here and just keep it, right? There's just no way you can go to 2 and expect to win any game ever, right?
Right. So I see expedition map and Tron land. So he's probably going to keep at least those 2, and then it looks like he kept Relic of Progenitus here.
Doesn't look happy about it, and I wouldn't be either. But we are underway here in game number 2, so let's get the ball rolling and see if Adrian can pull off the miracle. It feels extremely unlikely here, but the pressure really is on Matt Sperling. All he needs to do is come out with a quick start. What is going on here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 permanents on the board. Turn 1, go.
But he drew. Oh no, Adrian did not lead out with Expedition Map. He led out with Relic of Progenitus because if he played turn 1 Expedition Map, he drew a Tron land. He would have had Tron on turn 3.
Why didn't he leave with the map?
I guess he just wanted to ensure that he finds an actual land because he only had 1 land in his hand.
Don't you just have to take a swing here?
It feels like if you're down to 3, you just put yourself in the best possible position to just try to have kind of the best possible start, which would be, of course, the lead out with Expedition Map.
All right, so Sperling had one of those affinity opens where you just go, here's my whole hand. But where does it go from here? He's got cranial plating, and it's just a matter of him trying to make sure that he can close the game out in the fewest number of turns. Is that it? Is that what we're looking at here?
Yeah, definitely. We're gonna see a very large attack here. He has cranial plating in play. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're gonna see an attack for 7 off the Ornithopter here.
Yeah, he did. You see tap the Blinkmoth Nexus. What he's done there is he's activated its ability so it becomes a creature. It also happens to be an artifact creature as well.
And this is the best possible start from Affinity. We've seen Matt Sperling play turn 1 Mox Opal multiple times with cranial plating and equipping, and that just gives you that extra turn, that pivotal extra turn that you need for a format as fast as Modern.
Yeah, you mentioned it before. Mox Opal, really the unsung hero of the Affinity deck. You know, it just sits back there with the lands. It just taps for mana. Sometimes you just kind of forget about it or just think, oh yeah, it's there. But really, it is probably the most powerful card in the deck. It enables the most broken draws in the format.
Absolutely. I think it's the most important card in the deck. I think the deck wouldn't really function if it didn't have access to Mox Opal.
Jeez, and there's a Ravager as well. So no rest for Adrian Zhu. He is getting straight up ran over here by Matt Sperling. Is this even a lethal attack?
This is an attack for 13. This is an attack.
That is lethal, my friend.
Battle Cry on the Signal Pass, so that's 1, 2, 3 damage, and then Blinkmoth Nexus is an additional 1, that's 4. Then you count up the artifacts, that's 9.
Easy game for Matt Sperling.
That's a second turn 3 kill for Matt Sperling.
Seriously. Wow, at least Adrian used up his mulligan to 3 when Sperling was just going to kill him on turn 3 anyway.
Jeez.
Wow, impressive stuff from Sperling. He is on a rampage in the feature match area today. Adrian Zhu must be thinking, what did I walk into here? He's now all of a sudden down 2 games to 0, and he's got to win 3 games in a row. Now, the good news for him is that we are moving to our sideboarded games now, Paul, and traditionally that tends to help out the players who are playing against Affinity, since you can bring in very specific sideboard cards. We're going to get a little word on that, but first, these messages.
Everyone's favorite homunculus Fibblethip is known for getting totally lost. And for the first time ever, he's relying on you to find him. Casting this legendary homunculus from your hand allows you to draw a card, sure, but if you can put him in play from your library, you'll draw 2. We've included a few toys in War of the Spark so you can help track Fibblethip down, and they all function a little differently. Bolas's Citadel allows you to shove Fibblethip right into play from the top of your library. And as a nice little bonus, you can even hold priority with Bolas's Citadel in play to give you a chance to cast instants that might be on the top of your library before you actually draw those 2 cards. Green, though, is definitely the best color for finding Fibblethip in War of the Spark. Vivian's Arcbow allows you to find Fibblethip out of the top X cards of your library at instant speed. And Neoform can quickly turn your 1-drop into some serious Fibblethip value. The most reliable method, though, is just simply cast Finale of Devastation for X equaling 2. Truly devastating. And if Fibblethip is already in play, don't despair. You can always use Spark Double to enter the battlefield using any one of these methods, copy Fibblethip, and you'll still draw the 2 cards. Good work, Spark Double. Good luck homunculus hunting. Stay tuned to Mythic Championship London for more War of the Spark quick tips.
We are at the threshold of a new age.
Did you think death would free you from your obligation?
When the system fails, we will balance the scales. This is cruel territory now!
Get ready for the freak show!
What is there to fear? This is what we've been preparing for! The end race is upon us! Your skull will make a fine trophy.
And welcome back to the feature match area. We're in London, England. Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Cheon, semifinal number 1 here for Mythic Championship II. Got some sideboard action for you here. Let's take a look at those right now. Matt Sperling with his Affinity deck. Is there anything that stands out to you? I see those Damping Spheres, Paul.
Yeah, Damping Sphere is kind of one of the sideboard cards of the tournament. You see it in any aggressive strategy out of the sideboard here. And so we're gonna definitely see Damping Spheres coming in. It synergizes well with kind of the artifact theme on top of what Sperling's trying to do. You know, you see it in a bunch of different decks, but specifically here, even cards like Cranioplating get a little bonus here with Damping Sphere. Also Ancient Grudge as a way to kind of shut down Oblivion Stones and maybe even an Expedition map that's exposed. The Ancient Grudges can also go a long way.
All right, what about on the other side for Adrian? He's got Dismembers, Claims, Tusks, Thought Knock Seers, 2 Spatial Contortion, and a Surgical.
So normally Thragtusk is good against aggressive strategies, but many of the creatures in Affinity have evasion. A lot of the creatures fly. Signal Pass can only be blocked by flyers. So I don't expect Thragtusk to come in. I think Dismember, Nature's Claim, and Spatial Contortion are the cards that you can expect Adrian to bring in. And he has a lot of bad cards actually in his main deck in this matchup. We talked about how Ugin just doesn't kill things very easily. Relic of Progenitus doesn't do a whole lot. So those are the cards that I would expect to take out. And he even has that 1 copy of Thragtusk in the main. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes that out as well.
Okay, let's get underway here in game number 3. Hey, this could be the decider, right? Matt Sperling is up 2-0. He could be in the finals here at the Mythic Championship with a win here. And how was his start? Well, a little pedestrian.
Adrian has more than 3 cards in hand, so he has a better chance here.
He's decided on a different strategy this time,
right,
keeping his opening hand.
Strong play. Now, Matt Sperling, not as explosive as a start here with just the turn 1 Ornithopter, but it looks like he has a Mox Opal, but didn't actually have a way to turn it on. So there was no real reason to run it out turn 1, and just kind of you can wait till the next turn to play it out.
Just happened.
I think he's just maybe thinking.
He played a land and then picked it up.
Oh, sure.
Oh, he played a different land.
I see.
Can you do that? Maybe he said something.
Know.
Couldn't hear him. Well, he's decided to play the Blinkmoth Nexus instead. And what is his 2-drop of choice? There are numerous, basically 3 kind of power 2-drops in this deck. That is one of them. Steel Overseer. There's also the Ravager and the Plating, which are the cards that you have to deal with. Now, here's the Mox. Oh, sorry. It's actually the Memnite, not the Mox Opal.
I like the fact that Adrian's like, you know what, you figure out your play. While you do that, I'm just gonna go get my 3rd piece. Thank you very much.
Spoiler alert! I'm getting my 3rd Tron piece in this case, and hers is mine. I can appreciate the efficiency.
Oh
there,
yeah,
Paul.
same. And again, Matt not playing out that Mox Opal as there's no reason to. Nothing else to play this turn. And what is this?
Oh, wow. Turn 3 Karn. Hello. Get rid of the Overseer.
We've seen this one before.
We
and
have.
I think a lot of the viewers have seen this before.
Indeed. Now, this does get kind of interesting, though, because Sperling does actually have 3 power with the Mox plus a land. He could activate both creature lands plus the Mebknight and finish off Karn, unless he has a plating or something like that.
Yeah, and it does look like he has a cranial plating on the left side.
Okay.
So
easy mode.
Right. So I think he wants to remove that Karn from the battlefield. He might even be able to sneak in an extra point of damage here.
Yep, there it is. Cranial plating on Ornithopter. Plenty enough to kill the Karn. And as you mentioned, every point of damage matters in these situations. So that Mebknight chipping in, even just for the 1, could be relevant later on.
Yeah, but let's see what Adrian now is working with. He does have the turn 3 Tron, and he also has a lot of action here. He's got Oblivion Stone in hand. He's got multiple chromatic spheres with Ancient Stirrings. So, yeah, the world is his oyster. The one thing that he needs to be mindful of is the sideboard of Matt Sperling. Keep in mind, we are now in sideboarded games, so he doesn't actually have 8 mana in play. So if he runs out Oblivion Stone, he doesn't have the ability to sacrifice it, and that could leave himself vulnerable to Ancient Grudge. So he might want to wait and make sure that he can play Stone and pop it on the same turn before casting it.
His hand is going to look much, much different after this turn. He has an Expedition map to go get yet another Tron piece or whatever it is that he wants. He may actually even be considering that Ghost Quarter again, given that at some point it looks like he's going to be able to get the Oblivion Stone going, and that would leave those creature lands back as kind of the most predominant threats. But at any rate, he's got 2 Chromatic Spheres and an Ancient Stirring, so he's going to see a lot of cards from his library here. Another Expedition map.
I like Chromatic Sphere here into Ancient Stirrings, because if he does have 1 mana in his pool, Ancient Stirrings means he's extremely likely to find a land. So worst case scenario, you can play a Wormcoil Engine. But if he finds an Urza's Tower, he actually can play the Oblivion Stone this turn and pop it. Oh, he's just running out the Oblivion Stone.
Oh, this is risky business here from Adrian. You do not want to expose such an important card.
And this is the upside here of Matt Sperling not running out the Mox Opal, because Adrian, in his mind, could be thinking, well, Matt doesn't have colored sources, so, maybe I don't have to worry about Ancient Grudge as much.
Wow.
And Matt never had a reason to actually play the Mox Opal. Even with the cranial plating, he just needed enough damage to kill off the Karn. So that extra point of damage is totally irrelevant there as well.
Really tight play by Matt Sperling here, just hanging on to that Mox Opal, and there's that Ancient Grudge in hand. This is going to backfire pretty terribly here for Adrian. And by the way, on top of that, he did end up going to get the Ghost Quarter as well. You can see his line of thinking. He's like, well, I've got this Oblivion Stone. I'm going to do that. Then I want to be able to deal with this Inkmoth Nexus and really put Matt Sperling's resources in a pinch. But as it stands, that is going to happen, and it's a terrible downside to the line that Adrian took. He exposed the Oblivion Stone to this type of removal, and Sperling had it. He's even got a cranial plating.
Oh, look at this
and
attack.
the land. This can't be 19, but it is a lot.
And Adrian being massively punished here for just running out the Oblivion Stone.
Huge
he needs to
problem.
find an answer to that flying Ornithopter. He's got a Wormcoil Engine, but Matt can just re-equip the other cranial plating onto the flyers for lethal damage.
So this is what, 11 damage hitting Adrian?
Yeah, Adrian still has cards he can draw here, of course.
Let's see if he finds one. He just drew his card for the turn, Paul. It needs to be, okay, it was Dismember.
Yeah, he's at 8, though, so that's a bit precarious. He can still filter through his draws with those Chromatic Spheres. He does have Ancient Stirrings as well. Walking Ballista would also be pretty strong.
Yes. So he's looking for Ballista, Oblivion Stone. Is there any of those in there? No, there's not. He's already gone through 1 sphere, and looks like he's got a few more in his hand as well to kind of keep churning through. He's going to see a lot of cards, but of course, his mana will start to dwindle.
Right,
There's a tower. Yeah, he wants mana.
Right, he hasn't played a land for turn yet, but he has no mana floating. So if he plays a tower, he will have access to 9 mana.
Okay, worm coil engine. Unfortunately, that Ornithopter has flying. So is he going to try to lean on dismember here and then start to attack with the worm coil?
He can do that. So what's probably going to happen here is because Matt Sperling cannot attack with the ground creature, Matt can activate one of the Nexuses, equip it with cranial plating, but he still has the ability to instantly move cranial plating because if you can see on the screen, double black, you can move it to target creature you control. So he can't double activate. If he double activates and moves, he won't be able to actually move with the cranial plating, meaning that Adrian can use Dismember on the Ornithopter, go to 4, then use the Ghost Quarter to get the other Blinkmoth Nexus off the battlefield, giving him an additional turn.
This is very complicated situation now for Sperling because he does have the tools to present lethal damage, but a removal spell from Adrian Zhu will knock that off the table.
And Matt just kind of thinking about what possible cards Adrian can have, and I think he's thinking Dismember. This must be Dismember.
Yeah, for sure. Also interesting, let's not forget that there is an Ancient Grudge in the graveyard for Sperling, so that lifelink hit from the Worm Coil Engine can be delayed. He can let it enter combat and then kill it. It will not get any life for Adrian, so he may be able to just set up a 2-turn win here, even through a Dismember.
Definitely. But Sperling also just wants to see if he can get the kill in this turn if possible.
Of course.
Because you definitely do not want to give Tron an untap here with 11 mana on the board.
Yeah, he's going to force Adrian to use Dismember one way or the other, but he's thinking, what if he has Dismember? Remember, that would put Adrian down to 4 life. But it doesn't look like Matt can create 2 lethal attackers that can survive both Dismember and the Ghost Quarter. He is going through the motions here to make sure that that's the case. Let's see if he can find a line. Yeah, he's...
Magic's hard.
It is really difficult, and particularly decks like this one are very, very punishing to even the smallest mistakes. 1 damage or 1 equip or 1 I forgot you had this can really destroy an entire game plan that you have. You just don't have the wiggle room. The power's there. Not a forgiving deck, though.
Okay, looks like he's activating both of the Nexuses. And he can still choose to equip one or choose to equip neither and just ensure that you get in for some damage here because Adrian is not going to Ghost Quarter this Blinkmoth Nexus because Matt Sperling has the ability to instantly move cranial plating. So instead, he's just forced to take 2 damage. So now what Adrian needs to do is Dismember the Ornithopter and just take 2 because he cannot Ghost Quarter. Oh, yeah, that's super lethal.
It is.
You got to kill it.
Beyond lethal. Currently 8 artifacts on the battlefield for Sperling. So there it is. I'm going to go down to 4 to cast Dismember, kill your Ornithopter, then take 2. And Sperling is getting very, very close
and the thing
to a Mythic Championship final.
Right, and the question here is, does Sperling want to instantly move the cranial plating and force the Ghost Quarter? I don't think so. I think you just want to get in for the 2 points of damage and have the ability to flashback Ancient Grudge so Adrian maybe can't gain any life. But it is a close decision. Is he going to go for it here? I mean, with the cranial platings in play, that does mean that, even if Adrian connects off the Worm Coil Engine, the cranial plating easily just provides enough damage for lethal.
Okay, he did go for it here. And of course, he only has mountains, right? There's no green source.
Yeah, if he had a forest, the instant move would be would be a very good play.
Yeah.
Or, well, I think this was a fine play already, but it would be even better because you would have the ability to flashback Ancient Grudge.
Yeah, that would be kind of why not both territory.
Yes.
But as it stands, like you said, even then, Matt has determined, you know what, you can hit me with the Worm Coil Engine. I still have plenty enough to kill you on the swing.
All right.
Back in the other direction. Can Adrian find something at Sylvan Scrying off the top of the library? But he's going to see cards. That's another land off the top of the library. There's nothing left here for Adrian Zhu.
Yeah, I think he has no action left. He can attack with Worm Coil Engine, but Matt just has a lethal attack here.
Yeah, Matt just says, sure, you can gain 10, but you know what? I got a lot more than that coming back the other direction. Adrian, out of gas, cashes in that Worm Coil Engine, but he just doesn't have anything else to do here.
That's right.
He's got an Expedition map and a Sylvan Scrying plus another Tron piece in hand. He effectively has 3 lands in his hand at this point.
Right, and he already used Ghost Quarter, right?
Right, he did already use it.
So I don't think he has a second one.
Yeah, I'm going to double check here.
Oh,
No,
I like it.
He
so
has one.
So he gets a forest here so that he could at least maybe bluff Nature's Claim.
Okay. Would this change Sperling's play, though? He
Absolutely
for
not.
sure is going to present lethal damage here, right?
Yeah. There are 4 artifacts on board. He will be activating this Blinkmoth Nexus and going in for the kill.
This is Matt Sperling putting himself in the finals of a Mythic Championship with a clean 3-0 victory over Adrian Zhu from Canada. Sperling is just going over the numbers here and deciding, is there any reason why I shouldn't go for this right now?
Yeah, if he activates the Blinkmoth Nexus, that's 5 artifacts on the battlefield, meaning each of those cranial platings will be giving that Nexus +5/+0. On top of that, he can also activate the Inkmoth Nexus, which would be an additional artifact. So we're looking at 13 damage here.
It must be nice when you can ignore a hit from a Wormcoil Engine and still just cleanly attack for lethal, but that is exactly the situation that Sperling's in. Now, he is in the tank looking at that forest on the other side and really running through all of the options that Zhu could have, because could this go wrong for him? Let's say it is Nature's Claim in hand for Adrian Zhu. What does that do for Matt's line of play if he were to have that? It feels like Matt is compelled to put lethal damage up and force Adrian to have something. But maybe he's considering something like, you know, a 2-turn approach. He also drew Experimental Frenzy for the turn. And it looks like he might be going for a different kill here, Paul. It would also be lethal, though.
Right.
And look at this. It is Inkmoth Nexus into the red zone. 13 poison is just enough as well. And that is the match going to Matt Sperling, who puts himself into the finals of the Mythic Championship here in London. Congratulations to Matt. Woo! That was a beating, by the way.
Yeah, and really, I just want to talk about the true turning point there in that specific game was Zhu leaving that Oblivion Stone exposed to Matt Sperling's Ancient Grudge. Not only did Matt sandbag the Mox Opal because he didn't actually need to use it for mana, but that also maybe influenced Adrian to run out that Oblivion Stone. He could have been a little more patient there, or look to play the Star, or find land so that you can run out the Oblivion Stone and actually crack it on the same turn.
Yeah, and you saw, I don't know if you caught it on camera, but there was a pause there from Adrian. He's like, ugh. And then, and that, his entire game plan fell apart in that very moment. Sperling through to the finals. We're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll be setting up for semifinal number 2. Don't go anywhere.